We are on part 4 of reading Nomad Capitalist. This is chapter 1, part 4. And as I've said before, reading this book is very interesting, but the pages are kind of long. So to get a good reading in on it, you gotta, read a few pages. It might take a few minutes, takes a little time, but we're gonna get through this chapter 1 here. And I mean, this is a 320 something page, 363, geez, 300, about 380 pages. I don't think I'm going to read the whole thing here on this channel. There's some other books I want to get to as well. Now, personally, I'm probably going to read this book, obviously myself, but I strongly suggest that you get this book. You can go to the description of this video and you can click on the link and you can get this book and read it yourself and or get the audio. But in the interest of time, I just want to jump right into it. I'm going to make another video today. Some incredible things happened this weekend that I want to share, but I think it deserves a second video. So let's just jump right into this part 4 of chapter 1. And then let's, we'll call it a day on the reading, but then stay tuned for my second video of the day, which I'll talk about some things that happened this weekend and my thoughts about how it, is associated with freedom seeking. Okay, so let's get into it. We're on page 17 of Nomad Capitalist. And we're in the section that starts, that's headed with planting flags. Okay, so let's just get into it. And I'll try to read a few pages here. Planting flags. Now that we know what we are trying to accomplish, let's get specific. When you open a foreign bank account or take some other action that diversifies your assets, business or lifestyle to a more favorable place, that is called planting a flag. Back in the 1960s, a man named Harry Schultz created the concept of the 3-flag theory, which suggests that those seeking sovereign freedom do 3 things. I'm going to go ahead and just underline sovereign freedom, because I think that's what we're all really looking for. When we say we're freedom seekers, what does that mean? Sovereign freedom, I think, is the term that encompasses the whole idea. And so let's go further define sovereign freedom. The three things, the flag theory. Have citizenship somewhere that does not tax income earned outside the country. This was the personal safe haven. 2, have businesses and investments in stable, low, or no tax countries. These are called the business havens. Live as a tourist in countries that support your values rather than societies. These countries are the lifestyle havens or playgrounds. All right. So there you go, freedom seekers. That is what you are looking for. You're looking for a personal safe haven. You're looking for business havens, and you're looking for lifestyle havens or playgrounds. Okay, there you go. That defines what a freedom seeker is seeking. Freedom we're seeking. All right, let's go on. The idea of flag theory, as it became known, was to live life out from under the thumb of the taxman and the bureaucrats that make life no fun. There you go, guys. That makes me want to take like a big sigh of relief, because I've been looking for a way to define this feeling that I have, this idea, this, ideology that I'm seeking, that I feel defines me. Why do I feel like I'm different than everyone else? Why do I feel like I'm on some path that I find very few people on? Why am I the way I am? Sometimes I feel like I have a hard time relating to people because I feel like I'm looking for something that many people aren't even aware of. And then I read this book that seems to define what it is, who I am, what I think about, what I'm looking for. And it's right here. Live life out from under the thumb of the taxman and the bureaucrats that make life no fun. Those who practice the theory could become PTs, known as perpetual travelers, or even prior taxpayers. Can you imagine being called a prior taxpayer? Who would then jet set from one locale to the next, going where they were treated best. While nomad capitalists who adhere to flag theory can certainly choose to travel perpetually, it is also possible to achieve the benefits of this lifestyle by obtaining 2 or 3 home bases around the world and alternating between them. You can even live in one place if you want, confident that your bank account is somewhere else just as safe. The point is to take advantage of the best treatment possible. For instance, the third flag is to live as a tourist because countries often reserve their best treatment for the folks who enter their borders as tourists. Unlike a resident or citizen, tourists do not usually get heckled by the police for stupid stuff like jaywalking. They do not have to pay local income tax either. There are nice offices dedicated to helping tourists find stuff. And in many countries, they can even get their sales tax or VAT refunded when they leave. So, I mean, doesn't it make sense then to be a tourist wherever you go? I mean, that it just sounds like that's the life. While most tourists head back to the reality of a cubicle, snow in the driveway, and tax season when they return from their vacation, nomad capitalists leverage this treatment into an ongoing lifestyle. As a nomad capitalist, you may choose to visit the same places over and over again. One couple I know has 3 homes in 3 different countries that they visit each year, never exceeding their tourist visa status. They are not residents or citizens of any of those countries. Being so would make them subject to the kinds of rules that residents and citizens are subject to. Instead, they are happy to fly under the radar as tourists. They know which cities are best for shopping, which are best for eating and drinking, and they leverage the best of each one. Other nomad capitalists who utilize flag theory choose to stay on the move. I used to prefer this method. I realized at one point in my life that many cities started to bore me after 10 days. So I devised a plan to spend 1 year composed of 36 10-day trips. It was a fantastic year. Now, however, I tend to prefer slower travel and being able to settle in for a few months at a time in homes that I own as both investments and lifestyle properties. Living the nomad capitalist life means you choose the terms. Raise your hand if you are starting to see the idea of what freedom actually is. Like, raise your hand if you are starting, or I should say, comment on this video, if you are starting to see the true definition of freedom and you're starting to realize that it's quite different than what you thought it was, right? And now you are starting to redefine freedom, more closely related to what you're reading in this book. It was not always that way, though. In the early days of flag theory, a much smaller and wealthier group pioneered a way of living that can now be done with far less money. In the mid 20th century, being a perpetual traveler meant summering in Monaco, wintering in the French Alps, and stashing money in Swiss bank accounts. The idea of jetting from place to place in an effort to stay one step ahead of the taxman, sometimes legally and others not, was a notion of whimsy for Joe Citizen. Was a was a notion of whimsy for Joe Citizen. It was also much more frowned upon. Tax rates in the United States peaked at 91% before John F. Kennedy took office. Back then, patriotic U.S. persons seemed substantially happier to pay than I'm sorry. Let me back up. Back then, patriotic U.S. persons seemed substantially happier to pay than they would be in today's more global world. They also believed that they were getting something for their tax money back then. Today, tax rates are lower, as are the stigma and barrier to entry of living a jet set lifestyle. In fact, it is so easy to jet set around the world these days that plenty of modern perpetual travelers choose to spend their winters in Thailand and their summers in Amsterdam. However, most of these folks are not fully availing themselves of the host of financial benefits that come with the nomad capitalist lifestyle. Unlike their jet-setting predecessors, many of today's perpetual travelers did not escape the grind because they wanted to lower their taxes. They just wanted to travel. There is nothing wrong with that, but even if you did not set out to reduce your taxes, why not enjoy all the benefits that come with the lifestyle? I once helped a U.S. citizen and entrepreneur who had been living nomadically in Europe for almost 2 years. Eric knew the basic tax laws for U.S. persons living abroad and filed a tax return accordingly each year and elected the foreign earned income exclusion. Yet, despite working with a U.S. accountant, by the time Eric came to me for help, he was still paying $81,000 in taxes every year. Eric and I got under the hood of his business and discovered that his U.S. company had been set up improperly from the start. We restructured his business to include both a new U.S. company and an additional offshore structure in Asia that enabled him to legally avoid taxation on most of his income and pay about 1/3 of his previous rate on the rest. Again, we're starting to really learn what freedom is based on the stories that we're hearing in this book. By planting just a few more flags around the world, Eric will be able to save approximately $600,000 over the next 5 years without changing anything about his nomadic lifestyle. The ability to save all that money had been there all along. All he needed to do was to start thinking like a nomad capitalist and not just a nomad. These options are available to anyone willing to learn and then take the necessary steps towards greater freedom. How is this legal? In the 50 years since the concept of planting flags was introduced, numerous revisions have helped expand the theory into more aspects of our lives. In the 80s and 90s, W.G. Hill modified the original 3 flags and added 2 more, residence and assets, to create 5 flag theory. And at Nomad Capitalist, we have added even more flags and adapted the old ones to ensure 100% legality in the age of transparency. Going where you're treated best is all about modernizing flag theory to fit life in the 21st century, a time when we really can live, work, and play anywhere we want. Part of that process is to bring the philosophies of flag theory into the light, examine them up close for all to see, and then to fit them into a perfectly legal blueprint. 50 years ago, the type of person likely to plant flags was more inclined to live in their home country than to travel. Excuse me. As glamorous as the jet set life seemed to be, most people preferred the comforts of life in Boston, Seattle, or Dallas, knowing that their untaxed cash was safely tucked away in Zurich. Travel was a perk, but not their way of life. This was also the time when Swiss bankers were more than willing to cater to those very desires. It was common practice for these bankers to arrange to covertly retrieve stacks of cash from your house, fly them back to Europe on their private jet, and deposit them into your anonymous numbered bank account. What was the problem with this activity? Simply put, it was illegal. Not exactly a minor detail. It would still be illegal if you tried to do the same thing today. However, flag theory in and of itself is not illegal. It can all be done in the light of day, 100% by the book. I was recently having dinner with a business consultant in Ukraine. As we dipped into another bit of Georgian Khachapuri, she asked incredulously how it was you do legal. How is what you do legal? It's offshore. Decades of media portrayals of illegal offshore activity have made the public think that merely having an offshore bank account is illegal. But not every offshore transaction is made with stacks of cash, private jets, and numbered bank accounts. When I explained to my dinner guests that were she to move to London, she would open a British bank account and stop paying Ukrainian taxes, she seemed to understand. Offshore is not so dark and complicated. If it were, you would not see me splashing my face all over the world's most visited website on the topic. I like my freedom. Thank you very much. In other words, he's saying this stuff is not illegal. Otherwise, he wouldn't be promoting it where his face is on all over it. He likes his freedom. He doesn't want to go to jail. He's not going to do something illegal. There is no doubt that a lot of people used to seek a false sense of freedom by breaking the law and bypassing the system. But that was not real freedom. Who can enjoy true freedom while in constant hiding? Real freedom comes from adhering to laws, even those that we do not agree with. I much prefer to find loopholes and exceptions within the law and create options for myself to ensure my continued success. Besides, Western governments have tightened the screws on offshore practices to the point that it has become nearly impossible to get away with illegal offshore activity to begin with. The rules of the offshore world you may have heard about on some spy show on TV have changed. Offshore banking, for instance, is not as easy as just dropping a briefcase of dirty money onto an island banker's lap. Going where you're treated best has nothing to do with illegal activity. And the people who follow these 5 magic words do not concern themselves with the offshore world of the past or in the movies. After all, why pursue illegal routes to protecting your wealth when there are perfectly legal ways to achieve your end goals? All right. Let's call it there, guys.